Hello and welcome back to the Nine Sports Podcast. My name is Kathleen Gier, and I host the weekly soccer edition of the podcast. In case you missed it, we had a big news internally last week as we officially launched a new vertical in the Nine Sports family. It's called the Nine Soccer, and it will follow the model of the Nine Basketball that you guys have become used to as your 24-hour newsroom for just women's soccer. I'm going to be the editor-in-chief over there, and I am so excited to work with my team of Julie Schreiber and Abigail Siegel and bring you guys the coverage that women's soccer deserves at this point. I wanted to kick things off today with a short conversation I had with our founder and editor-in-chief, Howard Megdal, about the Nine Soccer and why we're launching it now. Then we'll get into our top story of the week, our number one at the Nine, and talk about Lindsay Heaps' decision to join the Denver Summit FC. Then we'll talk about other big moves around the league, including Kansas City's new coach, Chris Armas. Let's hear from Howard first. Why this? Why right now?
So first of all, I am so excited that we get to do this together. And I know dating back to our years covering baseball and talking in press boxes about wanting to make real change in women's sports media, this has been a dream for both of us. So I think the Nine Soccer is coming into existence at a particular moment in time that is significant for a few reasons, right? First of all, what we have seen out of the National Women's Soccer League is nothing less than a league that is ambitious enough and takes itself seriously enough to require year-round coverage in and of itself. So if we were talking purely NWSL, the difference between when we were having those conversations and Jeff Plush was talking about, well, the National Mango Board is our only sponsor, and that's the only sponsor we're ever going to get, to where we are now, it's almost unfathomable. And so a league with a dedicated television deal that is signed for multiple years, that is not signed in season, is a place that allows for the ambitions that we have known NWSL always should have. Not only, but certainly including the U.S. women's national team in the international stage for women's soccer is very clearly something that is getting bigger and broader by the year. And the fact that we are seeing more and more powers internationally that require a depth of coverage, that go beyond Star X into what are we expecting out of international friendlies right on through the World Cup, which we have approaching fast and furiously in 2027. And then domestic leagues too, all over the world, a Canadian league, the fact that there are multiple leagues right here in the United States, what we're seeing overseas in Great Britain, what we are seeing all over this world of women's soccer requires something that extends beyond just a story here or a story there. It extends into a chance to cover this as a true vertical. And we've seen, to my mind, the beauty of the growth of the Nine basketball, the fact that we've been able to cover that sport in the kind of depth that respects it for what it is, right? That's what's missing in a lot of the way legacy media has covered women's sports, and even startups that cover it as something to cheerlead rather than something to inform and cover with capital J journalism, something I know is really important to me and I know is really important to you. It's what the Ice Garden has done for women's hockey. It's why we're so honored that they're part of the Nine family. And that's what we have a chance to do now. Capital J journalism, and of course, including our furry friends as well.
Classic that they also had to be a part of this.
Yes, rightly so.
What do you think you've learned maybe most from this model that you've used to grow the Nine basketball, formerly the Next?
There's a few things, and it's a great question. The number one thing is that you grow and develop and find the ability to earn trust over time by showing up and doing this the right way. There are no shortcuts. There is taking it seriously and reporting without favor, with true independence, and making sure that you are accountable at the end of the day to your reader, your listener, your viewer, to make sure that people know what is going on. And what's interesting is the folks within the sport who understand the value in that will respect that more every time than something that is tilted in a particular area or soft pedals everything. So that's number one. But number two, it is making sure that good journalists are getting reps and the opportunity and being empowered to do this work every day. And that is where and how those relationships are built, and the ability to inform people is able to spread in that way as well. And then the third thing, and this is internal, but it is treating the folks you are working with respect. And we are at, unfortunately, a moment in journalism where that is in extremely short supply. And making sure that we are doing right by our own people is fundamental to making sure we do this in a way that allows us to put our heads on our pillow at the end of the night.
That is perfect. And again, I'm just so excited to start this with you.
I think when we think about what you bring to the table, and you're not going to ask me about this, and I'm going to, because I think it really matters. The question you should ask, but you're not going to, is why Kathleen Gier is perfect for this moment. And so I'm going to tell you, listeners. Okay. Don't cut this. Please use this. Okay.
Okay.
Kathleen brings a seriousness of purpose to this work and a joy and a passion to this work that is unlike virtually anyone I've known in this space. And I've been doing this for a long time. And so the chance to be able to build at this moment in her career too is something that I take really seriously. And being able to, at the end of the day, say to you, and God knows how many times I've said this to you already, and I'll continue to, is like, well, what do you think we ought to do? Let's do it your way. This is what I am as excited as any part of this about, which is seeing what Kathleen is building, to see the team that you've put together with Abigail Siegel and with Julie Schreiber, to see what you guys come up with as a means of covering. I would urge everyone who is getting access to this incredible work. And again, for those who may not know, if you subscribe to the 9 Sports, you are getting the 9 Soccer as part of this, as part of our build up here in 2026, and making sure that we are your one-stop shop for women's sports coverage. But you're going to get it through the lens of the way Kathleen Gier approaches journalism. And I could not be more excited about that element of what it is we are here doing.
Thanks, boss. It's been 10 years.
More than 2015 World Series.
You're right.
Royals, right. Mets.
What a time.
What a time.
And then the mangoes that unlocked a lot of memories, unfortunately.
I really do. I think it's important to understand that these are two disparate things, right? When I say NWSL is a critical point and a serious point and a point of ambition, it doesn't mean, and I think they'd be the first to tell you, that Jessica Berman and company have everything figured out.
Right.
You know, we've seen this on the WNBA side too. We've seen this on the PWHL side, where there is an influx of interest and capital. And now you got to figure out what to do with it. And then the influx of interest means you're going to have to serve people in some different ways. And that's going to mean potentially a model that changes on the fly. And that goes for media too. And if anything, I think media has been slower to respond to that than we have even seen the leagues respond to it. And so there are two elements to that. One is that coverage needs to reflect that, which means covering missteps, not as catastrophe. The
Right.
league is done. Women's soccer ceases to exist, but also not as the NWSL can go and do no wrong. And
Right.
here's to girl power over actually treating it with seriousness and respect of here's what's going on. That matters. And then creating a model with the media coverage that allows for that gray area, that means breadth and depth. That means having journalists who are ready to do this, who have yearned to do this, as I know we both have for a really long time. And so we're going to make that promise to you, and we're going to keep it every single day. And you need to hold us accountable too.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us for a few minutes.
Thank you for all that you've done and are about to do.
Hopefully you enjoyed hearing from our fearless leader, Howard Megdal, and also enjoyed meeting the household cat. Her name is Ivy. Really glad that she decided to join during that important interview. If you go to our website, the9sports.com, that's THEIXSPORTS.com, you can find all of our content under the soccer tab, and then the 9 Soccer. All of Annie's Soccer Monday columns will be housed under the Soccer Monday link in that same tab. Podcasts like this one will appear in both places. As for social, you can find all of our stories linked from the 9 Sports accounts. We're trying to keep that more simple for you guys. Rather than starting up all new accounts, we'll just house it all under the accounts you already follow. And again, that'll be at the 9 Sports on basically every platform you can think of. So far, we have stories about Kansas City's new coach, Chris Armas, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, as well as a conversation with Christian Press and Tobin Heath from right before the NWSL final. Julie Schreiber also broke down the U.S. women's national team roster ahead of their January friendlies. This is a really fascinating one because we are missing any Gotham players and then any players playing in England right now. So not really a true roster. And Coach Emma Hayes has also suggested that this will be the last one that she kind of plays around with some of those fresher faces before we start getting into World Cup prep. But still, they've got 2 friendlies against Paraguay, and then they jump into those She Believes Cup games in February, right before the start of the NWSL season. Over at the 9 Sports, in her Soccer Monday column, Annie Peterson broke down the news about Lindsay Heaps and her decision to return home to play in Denver at the end of the Premier League season with Lyon. Lindsay Heaps, formerly Haran, last played in the NWSL in 2021, but as the U.S. women's national team captain, she should be quite familiar to the U.S. audience. She was playing in Portland last time she was in the NWSL, won the title there in 2017. She was the 2018 Player of the Year. And it's just a big deal to have the national team captain come home. As we kind of continue these conversations about players leaving, we have rumors that Sam Coffey is now leaving and going overseas. And, players potentially coming back, players coming back from pregnancy and making those decisions for themselves. This is just another really interesting piece to that puzzle, I think. She'll be joining them like midway through the year because of that schedule, but should add a really nice boost to that expansion club. And I thought part of what was really interesting about her conversation with Annie, which was kind of a Q&A format, was why now and why Denver? And Heaps said, I quote, "When I first heard about the team, I didn't really feel like it was real. I couldn't believe that we were getting a professional women's soccer team and in Denver. I didn't want to get too excited from the get-go because I didn't know if it was a real possibility for me. And then as conversations went on, the first thing I said, I wanted to make sure that it was the right opportunity for me." And again, I think that that is kind of the biggest factor that we're seeing here is that players in this free agency model have the freedom to really find that right fit for them. Obviously, going home, she has a support network there. Her husband works here in the US. Um, and going back to our conversation with Annie a few weeks ago, she talked too about having that kind of adventure overseas. Lindsay has played there, has played at the top of her game in every league. She is a four-time league champion. She um, is just an incredible talent, and being able to attract her back with expansion, I think, is a really um, intriguing part of this league and kind of their plans to keep talent here. I also think that Heaps is going to be a really valuable veteran voice for this expansion team. Although she won't be there right from the start, she will be able to lend that voice and that experience in the league and abroad to this relatively young team. I mean, they picked up IOK last week, which we talked about a little bit. They have Jordan Baggett, Carson Pickett, but still relatively young there for the inaugural season. We'll see who else they pick up before the season starts. But I really like this pick for them. Obviously, a world-class talent, a World Cup champion. And I think, also from a marketing perspective, just a really exciting player to bring in fans and get people to watch that first season as we kind of see how they navigate being a new team in this league when they don't have a whole lot of examples. Obviously, we've added a couple of teams in the last few years, but entering this kind of new era also without the college draft. Right before recording, we learned that Brazilian international Lamila is also on the move. The San Diego Wave acquired her from the Chicago Stars for $800,000 in transfer fees. And then they're also eligible for up to $200,000 in conditional transfer fees as well, making this one of the biggest interleague trades. She will take up an international roster spot for them, but I think this is a really intriguing move for the Wave, who are looking to maybe be a little bit more competitive this year. They have brought in a lot of different pieces over the last few weeks. Kansas City has its new coach in Chris Armas. He is an MLS alum and U.S. men's national team player, now a Hall of Famer as of last year. He comes from MLS, where he coached the Colorado Rapids most recently. He also coached the Chicago Fire. It's a really interesting hire to me because he does not have a ton of experience with women's soccer. Last women's soccer job was at his alma mater, where he coached the women's program from 2011 to 2014. So almost a decade out of the game there, and not a lot of experience or even familiarity, it seems like, with NWSL. But he did kind of address that in his press conference, said that he'll be looking to Vlatko Andonovski, the former coach, now sporting director, for his familiarity and his expertise there, and is just planning to watch a whole lot of film to catch up before the season starts. Kansas City gets a little bit of an early start, going to play in the Coachella Valley Classic, and then playing in the Challenge Cup game in like mid-February. I went to his intro press conference, and this is part of his opening statement.
In the very first conversations, and it was with the people up here, with Waleed, and I can tell you that I was searching for something that was different, something that felt right. I wasn't desperate looking for something, but I was desperately looking for something specific. And at everything that came up early on with these conversations, I felt like there was excellence at everything that they talked about. And talk is cheap sometimes, but I knew right away that it wasn't, because it's easy to see. So the facilities, the stadium, this stuff is incredible. You look a little further and you see the passion in the fan base, from knowledge to energy, and that's something real, very different, uncommon. I thought, it's not just, you got to give credit to the fan experience, so that was going on very differently. When I watched the team play, I thought, wow, what a job. Like in my dreams, they have the ball, they can score every time, and every time they lose it, they get it back. This is the type of football that I dream about these days, because I can't run anymore. But the type of football how I see it with intensity and verticality and pressing and forcing mistakes. That wow, this excellence, I can see it, I know it. And honestly, not last, but certainly not least, was the players. When I watched the recovery runs, the goals are the easy things, but to see what was built in, I said, okay, this is getting interesting. And the more questions got asked to me, the more questions that I asked, I started feeling this is a right situation. But the thing that got me most, quite honestly, to share with you was the people. That again, I've been in nice stadiums, and I can't wait to get going here and be part of all of this and all of you. But it was this feeling that you can't quantify and you don't measure. It's the people, it's how things are spoken to. It might be a follow-up text message from these two who are amazing. And before I even flew out, I'm like, what time is it? I woke up in a hotel in Denver, and it must have been like 2 a.m. He was in Europe, and he's texting me, hey, have a safe flight. But he's thinking about me the day that I'm going out to meet all of you. So excellence in everything they do. And I said, if they, by the end of it, I knew if they would have me, this would be the place.
This will definitely be a change for Mandanovsky, who stepped into that sporting director role. As I said, he had the experience with FC Kansas City in the early days of the NWSL and then went to the national team. Came back and he's coached 2 years here, winning the Shield with the Current this year. It sounds like Armas is really focused on kind of the tactical side of the game, definitely downplaying the differences between coaching men and women. So it will be really fascinating to see how those two kind of work together, how he fits in here, how he's accepted by the players, and what he's able to do to improve this team that won the Shield last year but had that early exit from the playoffs. That wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed our interview with Howard. We are so proud to bring this to you and be able to build this with and for you. Stay tuned for much more women's soccer as we move forward, and I will see you guys next week.